Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Black Expat Experience, a podcast highlighting the lived experiences of Black expats, nomads, study abroad students, and frequent travelers around the world. I am Kendall Tyson, your host, a licensed psychotherapist, and the fellow Black expat currently living in Beijing. I know I say this every episode, and it always rings to be true. We have another great episode and guest in store for you today. So I would love for you all to welcome our newest guest, Jody, to the show. Hey, Jody.
Everyone.
Right? Okay, tell me what that means. It means like,
Pardon?
tell me what that means. Because I can't say it.
What?
What is it? What
What I just That's the Jamaican one. What a go on?
okay, I
What's
sound
up?
real texting right now.
It's Jamaican. We say what up? What's up?
Okay.
Trinidadian, so the difference.
I love the colloquialisms. We have plenty of them in Texas for sure. I'm so glad that I get a chance to interview you and listen to your story today. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here and share my experience, and hopefully others can learn and join us.
Yes, ma'am. All right, so I always do this. I want to give you your 1 minute elevator pitch to kind of give us, inoculate us to who Miss Jody Belcon is. So you got the floor.
Okay, so my name is Jody. I am from Trinidad and Tobago. I am a proud Trinidadian and Tobagonian. I have been an educator internationally for 8 years, so I'm definitely celebrating that. I say to anyone that I meet, I am an educator, a mentor, a mother at times, a friend when there's a need. So, many, many hats. Being an educator, especially internationally.
Yeah, I did not know you've been working abroad 8 years.
Yes,
I don't
four
know how
years in
that.
Kurdistan, and this is my fourth year in Beijing.
Wow. Okay, so let me see. You have 8 under your belt. I'm finishing 6, and 7 is going to be the magic number. And then I'm like, got to go. Or at least with this iteration in Beijing. We'll see what happens after. So I really want to just get into it, and like I love. I think this is going to be the season of brilliant Black women, which is amazing. I want you to describe for the audience what is like the thing that you've learned most about yourself when you became an international educator.
I think at times I felt, back home that I wasn't good enough. And then I came out and I saw that um, definitely I'm good enough. I am capable of reaching pretty much whatever I set out to reach. Coming from a small country, like sometimes it felt that people were mad at you for having big dreams and trying to leave. But I think it was powerful to recognize that those big dreams, I think I've accomplished all of the dreams that I've set out to do. And I think that's important. Sometimes you have to leave to be successful.
I love that. It literally encompasses, it's literally the foundation of a lot of the conversations that I have on this platform is one, there is something that most of us have in common when it comes to bravery, our intrepid nature, our desire for freedom, and that need to kind of just separate ourselves from, I don't know what it is, but that we're separated. Maybe I want to say shackles, but that's just too much. Maybe it is separating ourselves from like expectation. Maybe it's separating ourselves from lack of opportunity, lack of expansion. I think it'll come to me. What do you think there that those of us who decide
I
to
think
live
it's the
outside
need
of
for
our country,
more,
huh?
need for more, you know? Within your home country, there's a limit. There's always a limit that you can reach. But leaving and exploring and seeing things differently, you get more. It's simple, but it's more. I wanted more and I
Yeah.
demanded more. So
What
I
more do
went
you
to
feel
get it.
like, what more do you feel like you've acquired so far?
Um, you know, I am first generation to graduate high school, first generation to go to college. I've seen more places than my parents could even dream of. I've been to more places, met more people. And just those experience, I think when I go back home and share that, and my mom is like ridiculous proud, like all over the world, like everybody she meets, my daughter is here, my daughter is this. And I think even for her, I'm not just living for me, I'm
Yeah.
living for her because there was a lot of sacrifices that my parents sacrificed. So, and I have achieved every single thing that I've set out to achieve. And every time we pass one, we set another goal. So I think it's just, I wasn't supposed to be here and I'm here. So I
Yeah.
need to pay homage to that.
Yeah. That brings home so much the thought of this isn't where people expected me to be. And so now that I'm occupying this space, now that I'm actively taking up space, now that I am being seen and reaching for that more that's available to me, like we're going to take full advantage of it and not just support and help ourselves, but help other people along the way as well. And it is so interesting when I started this platform and started being connected to people, it's literally being done everywhere that we're creating these Black in Panama, Black in Portugal, where I'll be soon, Black in Qatar, all of these different communities around the world to help all of us or help us in these different pockets stay connected, kind of expand our reach, really open our awareness to the people and the resources that are available to us. So I really feel what you just said. Let me ask you this. Tell us about your entry into international living. Like, how did your journey begin?
Okay. So as I said, first generation to graduate high school and to graduate from college. And I remember I graduated high school at 16, which is kind of normal in the Caribbean. So I did not want to do it. Yeah, because we follow the British system. So you
Okay.
finish at 16 and then you do A levels for 2 years again. Um, I did not want to go to university in the Caribbean. I felt it was a dead end. I felt with everyone that I knew, you have a degree from in the Caribbean, you had to go to England and you had to do another set of schooling because they made you repeat. You go to America, you had to do another schooling because they made you repeat. And it was a big argument with my mom. It's like 16 and I wanted to go to the States. And I felt that I needed to have a foreign degree to get where I want to be. And it took me a year to convince her. And then eventually, some compromises. Eventually, I got to get that an American degree. And I think it was useful because when you look at international schools, honestly, they only see US passports, Canadian passports, South African, UK, maybe Australian. A lot of schools will, on their websites, will say outright, if you don't have one of those passports, we will not
Yeah, the palm colored.
accept.
Right.
Yeah, and from the Caribbean, it's really hard. Especially a lot of the world only know Jamaica.
Yeah.
So trying to say Trinidad and Tobago is very rare unless you've encountered certain things. So I think I applied to the same company 2 years in a row. The first time my US visa was expired, so that was an issue. And then the second time I sorted out my US visa and they offered me a job. The problem was it was Kurdistan, Iraq. And I was so excited. I did not care. They said Iraq. I was like, okay, Kurdistan. I know Iraq, but I never heard Kurdistan. So I had
Right.
to go Google, see me trying to find out research. I already signed the paper when I started researching. I signed the contract.
Yeah. Don't do
I
that,
did
y'all.
not.
Listen, don't do that.
Please
PSA,
don't do that.
do the
I
research.
was lucky. Do the research first. But I was so excited because they gave me that opportunity and I knew I had to start off low. And I make the joke all the time. My friends ask, they're like, international teacher, and they make more money. I was like, nope, my first 3 contracts, I actually made less money than I made
Wow.
teaching in my country.
Wow.
But you have to sacrifice, right? You need
Yeah.
that experience, especially with a small passport. A lot of people don't recognize how much having not being a US citizen or not being a UK citizen, not having one of those bigger passports, that's a problem for some of us, right? So I knew that if I put in the experience, I'm good at what I do, I would get noticed. And the year of COVID, I wanted to leave my current school because I wasn't getting what I wanted. And I think it's important, it's a two-way street, right? You have to get what you need. And I wasn't getting what I needed from the school anymore. So I think that relationship, it I outgrew that particular position because I know I wasn't a newbie anymore. So I needed something else. And someone messaged me about a school in China during COVID, and I'm like, look,
Okay.
I mean, okay, let's go again, right? Let's go again. What's COVID to be in Iraq? How bad could it be?
How was
So,
COVID in Iraq? How were things being handled?
wow. Y'all thought China was bad? Iraq, when they said lockdown, it was lockdown.
Oh wow.
It down. You couldn't, there were times, and I didn't blame them. The infrastructure, uh, the amount of people, so they needed to kind of keep people at home to kind of slow down the spread. And it worked. It worked until, but you can't keep people locked in homes for too long. People will just, so the lockdowns were interesting and whole day and sometimes 3 days. My problem was in order to leave, you had to get permission, but you needed permission from your embassy. You had to get a letter from your embassies. Girl, Iraq never hear about Trinidad. Trinidad never hear about Iraq.
Right. Like, yeah, we
It
don't
has
cross paths.
no embassy, and they just did not know what to do with me. And I felt bad for the officials, my broken Kurdish, their broken English. I had some friends. I had somebody who was talking with the Greek embassy. I had somebody in the American embassy, the Canadian embassy. Eventually I got a friend who knew someone, and they were able to kind of little ratchet, but I was able to leave.
Like leave the
I wanted
country.
fun. Yeah, I was able to leave the country. We don't want to have it online and proof as to how, but
I,
little ratchet, but I got out.
yeah, you good. You share
Yeah.
exactly what you're comfortable with.
So I didn't want to go back home because Trinidad, the situation in Trinidad for COVID, like no flights in the Caribbean,
Wow.
most southern island, it's hard to get in, hard to get out. So I ended up in England for about 4 months, almost 5 months before coming to China.
Wow. I don't think people really recognize whew, just the level of upheaval that us internationally experienced when it came to COVID. It's like I was stranded in the United States at my parents' house. And while I was safe, for sure, it was one of the most difficult times in the last like 5 years that I've ever experienced. And so I remember like getting calls and watching TV about my Black friends that were in China at that time, and just the level of stress and duress and harassment that they were experiencing. So folks just really don't get how our lives were very much day to day and monotonous with
Definitely.
worry and isolation. And I think like the effects of that time period are starting to come out in the wash now. There's just so much that's happening in the world. And I'm wondering when you finally got settled, because you were in, was it Guangzhou?
Yeah. Guangdong province, so
Okay.
Huizhou. Yeah.
So when you arrived there, what was it like for you to transition from Iraq to China?
Well, let me tell you the story of why I chose the school.
Uh-huh.
So, um, first to begin, Iraq was rough. It was rough because of the isolation. There were times where I definitely recognized where I was depressed. That staying inside, no talking to anyone. I had a friend who I'm eternally grateful for, you know. She would make sure that I'm talking to somebody, you know, and we talk to each other because she lived down the road. And the thing is, you know, she was from Jamaica. So eternally grateful just to have that person there because you need that contact. That's who we are, right? We need contact. So it's definitely rough. Um, England, I got to spend some time with my family, so that was awesome, and I think that helped a little bit. But it also allowed me to think about what happened in Iraq, what happened during that COVID period. So I buried it, didn't think about it, didn't pull it out, you know. Um, when I interviewed for the school in China, I remember the principal, this white guy, looked like Santa Claus, nice little curls, you know, beard and everything. And he was like, there are Black people here at the school. In fact, there is someone from Trinidad and Tobago. I was like,
Oh,
yep,
wow.
sign me up. I'm
Listen,
here.
I'm glad he led with that because that's normally not the case.
Yes, and I think that's what made me feel comfortable because the fact that he acknowledged that I needed to know that there were other people of color
Yep,
at the school.
yep.
Even there was someone from my country. She got stuck in Trinidad and she ended up um, being unable to return to China. So I never did meet her, but um, I respected the fact that he acknowledged the importance of having people of color as
Yeah,
co-workers. Right. In Iraq, I was the only person of color in the school. So not that it bothered me because I think they were uh, like blessed. I was blessed. I'm lucky to end up in a school. Like I didn't really have any issues because of my um
like race.
color of my skin, right? Because of my race. I didn't have issues, so bless them. I mean, the most I got was are you IE or are you working, are you a cleaner, are you a servant?
Yeah,
But that was ignorance
racism.
more than
Yeah,
you know, so that was, yeah, that was it, more than racism. So I was lucky with Iraq. And then when I got to China, the cohort in that year, there was a good bit of people of color, and then I met some people who took me under their wings, and I think that's important. That is so important to have people who um, go out of their way to take you under their wings. So three of them, three girls, and I came in. Another girl from South Africa came in. The first person of color I've ever met from South Africa. I've always met the white South Africans. I've
yeah.
never met the So it was like five of us, some other people, and it was really strong. And I think that held me for those 3 years because we were isolated. Huizhou is small, it's a 5-day boarding school, and we were isolated, you know?
Wow.
So that community, I call them family, and I said it somewhere. I wrote down in my notes to mention it. You know, sometimes family is not just who we are born into, but
You choose.
sometimes it's the people we
Yeah,
So I think that was good because I was blessed, thank God, all the time,
right.
blessed to meet the people that I've met.
I really appreciate that. That is a concept that we talk about on the show when we talk about community and what does chosen family look like for you, and how has creating your own chosen family help you blossom and thrive as an expat living abroad.
Right. I think it's a little bit better than the family you're born into. The family you're born into, you have no choice.
No choice.
You know, the people who you need to cut, you can't cut because that's blood, right? And the chosen family, I feel more, I don't want to say more at peace, but I feel I choose them. I've chosen them. I have control of the people in my circle. So I don't have the messy people. I don't have, I choose the people that are there.
Yeah. And that makes a huge difference when we talk about like quality of life and not wanting to escape from the life that you have created for yourself abroad. I've found that it takes time to kind of
Yeah.
craft that right mix of individuals who kind of are there when you need them, because I've learned, at least living here in Beijing, people tend to be really transactional, and that is like a value that
Mm.
doesn't really work for me. And so sometimes I've noticed that when you connect with people and y'all's value system doesn't really align, it's like their true nature will come. And I know lots of people who've had like some friendship breakups, and things move very quickly between like relationships and friends abroad. I think it's kind of, we find people we want to connect because of the isolation that is just inherent with being an expat. And then stuff starts to come out in the wash, and you're just like, what is happening right now? Who are you? And do I want to keep you around, but do I really want to be alone? But like, oh my God, what do I do? It can be really interesting when we talk about dynamics of friendship living abroad. What would you say?
Uh, I guess part of it is cultural. I think for me, I've always grown up, that's been drilled in, acquaintances. I have a lot of acquaintances, but I have small amount of friends.
Right.
So when I travel or even here in Beijing, as I get to meet people, I hold everybody is still outside circle until I feel comfortable enough to let them in. And you are right, it does take time. And there are people that just you meet and it just clicks.
Exactly. I
And
like
and you can
those.
say, all right. Yeah, I could say, all right, there are things maybe I don't have to like everything about you, but I get you and I respect you. I could there you don't have to like everything about a person. We're not gonna get that all the time. As long as I feel like for me, there are things that maybe I wouldn't like because it might be, as you said before, that difference in views. But as long as it's not something that I feel would affect me in terms of difference in views and difference
Yeah.
in outcomes, life, and these things, I feel like I'm okay not agreeing with you 100%, but I get you. And you've shown that you're going to be there if I need, I can be there if like that kind of relationship.
Yeah.
And hit and miss, and it's experience in life will help you identify those people. um and sometimes you yourself have to kind of internalize what you're looking for, and are you putting extra pressure on people? Are you uh I don't want to say expecting too much, because I don't want to say that you should lower your expectations.
Right.
However, you can't force your expectations on somebody else. So
Yeah.
experience, I think, is the most important part of identifying people like that.
Yeah. I think that's really key is we cannot expect other people to fill the void that we might have, that might come along with choosing to live outside your home country and acclimating and adjusting. It's really learning to do that internal work, and you are bringing in people I think, to complement your life, not complete the life that you want to live.
Yeah.
It's a day by day thing for sure. There are tons of people in the world, that I would have never had an opportunity to interact with had it not been for me choosing to live abroad and in China of all places, which was never on my radar. I want to ask you, huh? Go ahead.
I said it definitely was not
Yeah.
on my readers. Far from home.
Girl, I thought I was
But
gonna be in Spain somewhere with my little Spanish husband, child, and working business. It might be Portugal instead of Spain, but I never went looking. Oh, let me see what China has to offer. But it has been the place that has really helped to grow me up in a sense, especially professionally. And so that brings me to this next question. When you think about the things that you've experienced, the encounters that you've had, I wonder what would you say has been an experience that's changed your life, and how has the gift of being able to live abroad really shifted your perspective and your priorities?
um, being abroad made me recognize how lucky I was to be born where I was born.
Ooh, that's deep. Unpack that.
We complain about everything back home. I think everybody complains about everything back home, right?
Yeah, I'll be complaining about Texas, Lord.
Yeah, but it made me appreciate hearing the stories from others, hearing how they grew up. It made me really appreciate how lucky we are back home. There are things that we don't experience. I don't know if it is because of our culture. We're very happy people, and crazy but happy. And for example, I grew up on television seeing people of color, right? Doctors, lawyers, everybody. So I didn't have that issue of not being represented. We saw
Yeah,
that all around us, all the time.
yeah,
So that was um we grew up never truly being, I don't know how to say, like, I think my family, my mom in particular, she wanted better for us. So we had that experience. I got to travel when I was younger. She took me on my first trip after I graduated from high school, and she keeps saying that it's important.
that
Um,
exposure.
that exposure to travel. Um, Jumping on a boat to go to another island. So that is not the first time that I traveled. We hop on a boat to go to Tobago, and we get to experience those things. Those things, I think, when I was telling my friend, my first car, my parents, when they got a car, because my youngest brother is 12 years younger than me. And I remember my mom, she was like, when he came along, she was like, nope, we have to have a car. So my first car was this Nissan B15. And it's like just hearing other people, and they were telling me, like, I had a friend from South US, and he's telling me this broken down story about his broken down car that he met his wife in. I was like, nope, my first car was a B15, and just these experience and hearing, sometimes we think we have it bad. And then you hear the stories and you recognize that we didn't actually have it as bad as how some people have it. And we need to be grateful for that. I mean, I know we complain and we don't see, you don't get to appreciate it until you hear the stories of others to recognize that, hey, everything that I did in life, or everything that I've achieved, or the things that I've experienced, somebody had it worse.
Yeah.
So hearing those stories and seeing the things that people went through and how it shaped them, I now and able to understand how the situations in my life shape me now even better.
Yeah, I get that. I think that we're all like an amalgam of the things that we've experienced, people that we've met, places we've been, obstacles that we've overcome, and they bring us to this moment in time and help us to rise above whatever challenges we do face, and help motivate us. There's this quote, I cannot remember it verbatim or who said it, but it's kind of, oh, it's gonna bother me because I can't remember. But it's like it's hard to know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. Like if you don't have a good grasp of where you come from, it can be
Yeah.
difficult to kind of forecast yourself into the future of possibility and opportunity. Because maybe we don't know like the type of struggle that ourselves, our family, our ancestors have had to really fight through to get us to this point. And so we keep the torch going. Yeah, like it's not
I
just
actually have the
who,
Arabic. My tattoo, my Arabic tattoo is
who
about that quote.
is it?
Pardon?
Who you got the quote?
No, I got a quote in Arabic that talks about, the past and how the past play a role and the present versus the future and so I get it. That is definitely it definitely helped understand, like you wouldn't understand that or those types of quotes until you get where you are. I think I'm
Yep.
at peace with what happened in my life in the past, that maybe I didn't have that peace because I didn't understand the situations. Now
Yeah,
I understand. So I'm at peace now
that makes
with
so
some
much.
of them.
Listen, I hear you. I'm still trying to make peace with some of the things. Some of them I've been able to relinquish control over or perception of control, but there are still some, even at my big age of 42, that I revisit frequently because things pop up at work or engagements with people trigger something that I've not fully been able to heal from or work through, or it's just a work in progress. But I recognize at this point in my life, I need to go make a shirt that says this. Peace is everything, like in this moment. Like I'd rather have peace over most things in this moment. And so and now I want to go get another tattoo while we talk about tattoos. I'm another tattoo before I go home for the break because you got me sitting here thinking like, oh, what can I get now?
I
Okay.
know, like even that, even the tattoos, is it's for me, I think the tattoos tell a story. So it's part of who I am now.
I hear you. Listen, I am all for them, right? I am a tattooed lady for sure. We'll add a little bit more to my collection before I leave Beijing. I want to know, so I heard you kind of speak about mental health earlier, and I kind of want this to be a bifurcated part of the conversation. When you think about the progress, first I want you to talk about, as do you call yourself a scientist? Because I know science is like your boo, your bae, your everything.
I am. I am.
You see how you just start to glow as soon as that came up? I love it. Okay, so for the young Black females, men, non-binary people that have a desire and an interest in this area of science, whatever that looks like, because we come from scientists, right? Like the transatlantic slave trade didn't just, kill enslaved people, scientists, doctors, engineers, inventors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I can go on and on. So I kind of want what would you say to those who are thinking of entering into what we call in the States STEM or STEAM, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math? What would you say?
Yeah.
Like, what kind of pep talk could you give them to help urge them and push them in this direction?
Um, Science or STEM subjects, they tend, I think, with the exception of arts, they tend to be very straightforward, very
Yeah.
XYZ. There's a way. I feel like don't get caught in that box.
Mm,
Don't get caught in that box where it has to be this way. The good thing about maths is there are a million ways to solve the same problem. We just don't get taught the million ways. We only get taught what the teacher was taught because that's the thing the teacher knows,
right.
right? Go there, explore, be the one that discovers something, be the one that discovers a new way to approach that same problem. Don't get stuck in that box where people say it must only be solved this way, it must only be done this way. Even for art, there, even art now, they teach you, well, you draw this way, you draw this way. Be you. Be you, understand. You gotta love it. You gotta love it because love is the only thing that keeps you in the field when it gets hard. So you gotta love it, and you gotta love it enough to be you.
I'm wondering, what does that look like for you over the years as you graduated at 16, gone to get your A levels, gone to university? What kind of opportunities has the field of science like brought to you? And what do you envision yourself doing in the next like 3 to 5 years when it
Well,
comes to science?
first weekend, I did not do A levels because I did not want to do it.
Okay.
I got out A levels again, small mercies, thanks, small mercies. I got in without that. So I think that's one of the ways that I was kind of true to myself. I knew from the start I didn't want to do certain, I wanted it to do the part that I wanted. I did the research, um, and I figured out the path that I wanted to go down, right? I didn't just follow what everybody expected, or I didn't follow the normal path. I did the path. That being said, sometimes the path doesn't go the way that you want it all the time,
Right.
but I love science, and I've always done. I did the biology, chemistry, physics in high school. I have my bachelor's is in biology with minors in chem and mathematics. So, I've always kept that close. So in the future, I feel for me, I would love to get back into the environmental science movement. I feel like it's important, especially coming from an island where um, we are not heard. We don't have the money, we don't have the representation, we are not heard, yet we are the ones that are going to be affected the most, the
Right.
fastest.
Right.
So I want to be a part of educating people, um, how climate change, how the world, even the policies, the politics, how it affects us as small islands, as I guess that in itself, we are a minority because we are not large enough to command. We don't have the armies, we don't have the power, we don't have the money, so we are the definition of a minority.
Yeah. Yeah. I know like what COP 28 is happening right now. I think it's in Dubai this year. I've heard a few people speaking, and what would that look like for you all to have the representation, right? To have the voice, to be able to speak to the world in general about the position that you play and the role that you play and your country plays in mitigating more environmental harm.
I think what it would be nice if we are at the table because we are facing some of the things. Sometimes people don't acknowledge things are happening unless it happens to them or unless they
Mm,
see the realities of it. So if
yeah,
we are not at the table and having the discussion, then the people who are making the decisions, they cannot see, they have no idea. To them, we are, arbitrary. They can't understand what's happening because it's not happening to them and it
yeah,
won't happen to them. It won't happen. Someone in Europe who is that landmass, I could fit my country must be 100, 150 times. I don't know. And, like that landmass, you stand, people who are on continents, there's a different perception. coming from an island where I travel from one end to the other in 2 hours.
Right.
So just being at the table, allowing people to hear what is happening. Right now, I don't feel like we are at the table enough, so people don't care because honestly, I don't feel like they know.
Yeah. How does that translate now that you're at a new school? Moment of self-disclosure, we're colleagues, people. We work together. um, Coming into a new school, a new position, a new role, with the knowledge and expertise that you have, how, as a Black woman, right? How do you, we can't leave that out. How do you reconcile what it is that the curriculum requires you to teach and like the real world application of things and kind of making up for gaps in knowledge? Like, what does that look like for you?
I think what I have personally first begin, look, if I'm not true to myself, I'm not gonna stay in the job long. And I have the luxury of being able to say that. I don't think a lot of people have that luxury. I feel it's important to me as a teacher. I would, those kids, I see them as my kids. And I feel like when I treat them the way that I treat them, I treat them the way that I want people to treat my kids when if I have, and when they go to school. I want the teachers to show that same level of care. So when it comes to educating my kids, because I do get to teach them environmental science, um, I think it's important, and they are lucky because it's important that they have a teacher with my background because now they get to see it from a different person, a different views. These are the children who are going to be leaders somewhere in China. I've always taught the leaders when I was in Iraq, those kids are going to be leaders somewhere.
Yeah.
When I'm teaching in China, those kids are going to be leaders somewhere. Um, Show them how to view the world. Show them. I remember, like, I had this one conversation with a class. I was like, how come when they show videos of Africa, all you see is the woman and the children? Where are the men? What's going on with that? What's going on with that? Like, why is the narrative always poor
Poverty street.
women of color with a whole bunch of children running around? Like, tell me why you think they want to portray that. There's a reason they portray that. One, half the time the men don't look scrawny like that, right? Half the time the men are healthy and able-bodied.
Don't fit the narrative.
Right? The narrative. So, I get them to see, hey, okay, let's look at the newspaper. How come, like even recently, I was like, to my kids, I was like, do you all know where Yemen is? Do you know what's happening in Yemen today? Do you know where Syria is? Where I just called out the places that are having issues, global issues, and
Damn.
these kids, they don't know. And I was like, how come? How come no one is talking about Yemen? Yemen has been under these poor people, right? For years. And I don't want to get into the politics of it because
Yeah.
that could get us in some trouble. But the idea is because I do not see the world the same way someone coming from the US or someone coming from the UK or these bigger countries, I am able to now show the kids different perspective. And the good thing about it is I don't believe on putting my perspective on them. I ask them the questions. It's
Yeah.
like you think about, you could go check it up, you go research it and then tell me what you think about it. I had one kid said, I don't know the discussion we were having. He was like, Miss, unfortunately, people of color do not get news time. And I felt so proud. I felt so proud because he
It's
just
clicking.
stated it was like, Miss, unfortunately, people of color, and that's why we don't hear about these things, right?
Yeah.
And he like the understanding is there. And because now he understands to a point. I don't think he'll always understand, but because now he has some information, when he grows up, hopefully he'd be able to take that compassion and knowledge
Yeah.
and be able to do something with it.
Yeah, I think that we in international education, especially as Black people, Black women specifically, because there's not a lot of us, we have such a unique responsibility and opportunity to really help shift narratives and understanding of people. And like you said, not through, let me tell you the way I think about it, and that's the most important, but just our mere existence breaks stereotypes and narratives that maybe people have heard or seen, and hopefully giving them the opportunity to to integrate new learning and just have a different perspective on how to engage with others. That's why, like, working in international schools that are really about the business of inclusivity, multiculturalism, and that shows up across the board is so important because, as you said, we are helping to raise and educate leaders of the countries that we're guests in, and we want them to be as well-rounded and compassionate and empathetic and knowledgeable as possible. But I know that's hard work. You know that's hard work. So let's kind of shift to what what have been some impacts mental health wise that maybe you've recognized while living abroad that you've experienced.
To be honest, I think moving to Beijing, moving to ISB, and the way that the culture about mental health is so open. I think it's the first time that I've ever been in a space like that. Um, Coming from the Caribbean, this is not something we talk about. This is a sign of weakness. We don't talk about. I am happy to. I know some of the people that I went to school with, big in the business of mental health. So I'm happy to see that we are kind of trying to shift the narrative that mental health is only it's a weakness, it should be hidden. Um, it's not something that you talk about, it's not something that you share. So I'm happy that the culture or the narrative is sort of on the way to shifting. I don't know yet back home, because I haven't been home for a while, but I just know of some of my classmates' work that they've been doing. So coming to Beijing, it's the first time that I've been at a school where that culture is one of openness and welcomeness, like to where I feel like now I knew there were issues, like I knew that there are things in my life that I still kind of have to work through. There are things that I kind of work through on my own from experience, but the fact that it's so open at ISB and I think it's given me a new perspective to kind of, hey, okay, I need to put this down on my to-do list because this is important. I can't do everything on my own. I can't work it through on my own. I've been looking into therapists and just doing my own research. So I think it's important to change that narrative that dealing with mental health is a weakness. I feel like it's actually a strength because I think it takes real strength to ask for help when you need it,
Yes,
which is not
ma'am.
the narrative that we are given.
I want to applaud you. Like, to even acknowledge that is a really big thing. And that is like the paradox, especially in our communities, not wanting to have another thing to suffer through or another problem to contend with or another barrier, or at least that's how some people see it, that impacts our daily functioning. But it's like us collectively as a people, wherever we are in the diaspora, have epigenetically been, living with generational trauma. So we have a different type of sensitivity to certain things just because of the things our ancestors and great grandparents and grandparents and parents and us have gone through, and that just shifts our genetics generation after generation. And I agree with you. I'm a living witness of the narrative shifting, of the understanding that it is vital for us to care for our mind as well as it is our body and our spirit. And I noticed, like, with our more spiritual kin, and I don't want nobody to think I believe in God. I believe in God. I am a Christian that loves therapy. I'm just like, how do we I think I have a sweater that just says therapy plus faith equals wellness.
Well, I don't know, like I don't have that again, like again, I'm talking about Trinidad. I can go to the extent of the Caribbean, but Trinidad and Tobago, very spiritual as well. But the idea of mental health, like my first encounter with a therapist, my brother had, he was diagnosed with ADHD, or what's
ADHD.
the ADHD? I should know better, but
No,
again,
no.
he was diagnosed, and when they told us, we had to make some shifts for him because we needed to make sure that he was safe. So that was the first time I heard about a therapist. So he had a therapist for a couple of years, and but this is what I'm saying. He had to be diagnosed with an issue for him to see that. Other than that, it's very rare, and it costs money, and it's not something as we say, we have a Cora hospital, which is what we call, the local will say, is either Cora or St. Anne's, which is like the madhouse, right? You get sent to Cora or you get sent to St. Anne's, you go to the madhouse. So it has never been a big thing in the Caribbean. I remember getting into an argument with someone who does, and honestly, I think it was me not being educated enough, someone who does psychology, and if it's truly a science.
I
We had a
love
huge
talking to
argument.
scientists about mental health science, right?
Yeah, so I was like, well, in the university, they are not even in the same department. What do you want me, we
Yeah,
don't see it. Like I didn't see it. So I like just things like that. Again, not knowing enough, it not being something that is discussed. So I'm happy. I'm happy that I'm in a space now where I'm being educated about it, but also I'm lucky because in Beijing, nobody cares. I'm not around people that I would feel uncomfortable. Back home, that's your family, your friends, people that you might not want to show that weakness. So
yeah,
being in Beijing, I have that room to let down some of my walls in a safe space.
yeah.
Not at home, I can't find a safe space, but I feel like because the people here are not, I don't know how to, are not
Judging,
hmm, judging, I guess. Yeah. Um,
or at least not with
so
that.
I mean, back home, you have to go, you tell somebody you're going to the therapist, they say, well, what's wrong with you? What do you need therapy? Why are you wasting the money?
Why are you telling people your
You know,
business?
you can't tell auntie and uncle that.
No.
You can't tell them that, right?
Right.
So be here, I think it just allows me to explore without judgment, I guess.
I love that for you. Man, you know what? I swear it's like Black people all over the world have similar experiences when it comes to our home culture understanding of, or even discussion of mental health. It's like, well, one, if there was a discussion of it, then a lot of it was centered around pathology, right? What's wrong with you? Or,
Mm,
we talk about that crazy cousin. I don't even like to use the word crazy, but the cousin that's touched or not all the way
That's
there.
exactly. That's
So we
exactly.
have a
Yes.
lot of stigmatizing language in our community. And I just keep thinking about what does that look like for us to, because we are healers. Like our community is filled with healers. And I want people, I think one of the hopes that I have for mental health, wellness, holistic healing in our community is, yes, some people need talk therapy, right? Yes, some people need medication, but as a community, how do we engage in like our heritage practices, like our cultural practices of communal healing to kind of engage a new way of healing, right? Like we do a lot of listening circles, using music, engaging in spiritual practices, mindfulness, getting out in nature. There's so many things that we do as a culture throughout the diaspora. And I just be like, how do we do more of that? Like, because, maybe the word wasn't depression 20 years ago, but when your auntie was melancholy, didn't want to talk to nobody, irritable, cussing everybody out, want to be alone, cooking because she needed to be anxious, because she needed to be doing something, didn't want to sit down, getting on everybody's nerves, telling everybody what we have these conditions. Maybe they weren't utilizing the clinical term, but it's like, so what do we do then to kind of heal ourselves in a communal sense? And how do we get back to those things? I don't know what destigmatizing the concept of mental health in our communities looks like completely.
I think it's just that allowing people to educate themselves, allowing people, more people to educate themselves, giving them that knowledge, giving them, hey, I think COVID did that. And, a lot of people see the negatives of COVID, but I think one of the positives of COVID is people understand now the role that mental health plays
Yeah.
in lives. So, and that's what I was saying, like a lot of my classmates, they are now able to come out and share that information, share what they've been learning. And that's how I've been looking at it, because I've been following them on Facebook. I mean, I knew I always had colleagues who were in that field, but again, in terms of openness, I wasn't ready. I wasn't there yet.
Yeah.
Um, so with COVID, people are now, I don't know if it is because others are now able to say, hey, my mental health, I definitely need to deal with that. There's an issue. So maybe because everybody else is able to say it, then people are now feeling comfortable to say it. But we need to continue educating people and allowing people to find what they need, those resources on their own.
I agree
I
with
think
you.
that would be.
And I think like one of the primary reasons for me even doing the work is to be one of those sources of information that look like us, that, fosters more trust, right? Being a therapist and a person that receives therapy, I think lends more credibility than you going to your doctor and they telling you something wrong with you and you just like, oh, you trying to get something from me, right? I hear that all the time. And just how do we continue to kind of inject our community with knowledge that we already have, um accurate information for sure. I'm always thinking like, cause baby, the people that be loud and wrong be loud and wrong.
Well, that's the downside with the internet, right? You get the craziest and you
Yeah.
get the craziest, right? So I also think, like, for me, one of the roadblocks that I've been facing in this research or this journey is that a lot of the avenues for help, even though I'm international, like my country, we don't have these set systems. We don't have systems for people abroad. You're abroad, you're on your own. You leave Trinidad, good for you. You're on
Yeah.
your own. We just don't have the resource and the reach, as I said before. So a lot of the research that I've been doing, I've been hitting dead ends because a lot of the resources aren't available for people who are not American or who are not in the UK and the NHS system, you know. So I think even that, because you have so much more people of color who do not belong to those groups. So who do they go to? How do they get access? What about the countries who don't have those systems or resources in place for um, to reach those who need reaching? So how do we, or what does that look for? Maybe that's a question
Yeah.
for the next generation. I don't know.
That's actually a really good question. I mean, it's the same thing here in China. Like the infrastructure is very infantile. It's growing. I know there's a hospital down the street from the place that we work that they made a multi-million-dollar investment into this hospital, does lots of mental health treatment, other treatment as well, yet it's closing December 15th. And beautiful, beautiful facility. We refer lots of people there. And I'm just like, I keep wondering, like, was the rollout appropriate? Because you can't just do this shiny new thing without trying to consistently and systematically engage the culture and the conversation about mental health and direct people to this particular service. Like there has to be like I don't even know if cultural shift or more cultural acceptance has to take place in order for
I
that
think it's
particular service. Mhm.
I think China has in common with the Caribbean is that culture, that sense. You don't talk about these things. You don't talk about it. At home is fine, between closed doors, fine, and behind closed doors, fine. Out in the public, no. Your business don't leave the yard, as we would say back home. Your business
Yeah.
don't leave the yard, right? So there's similarities in the way that we treat our elders, we treat our kids, that whole that we have. So if it is not just the new generation you have to reach, I think you have to also reach the older generation. And if you don't reach these generations, I'm gonna continue looking at you skeptical, because as far as I know, I don't talk. Whatever I'm going through, I keep it to me. This is not
Yeah.
something. So that is the mindset.
Yeah. Yes.
So
I
it's hard
fully agree
to
with
keep
that.
that mindset.
Yeah. And I mean, and we live in multi-generational homes too, at least most of us. So it's not just a one person issue. It becomes then what we call like a family systems type of issue that we have to deal with. Yeah, that makes me think about some things. I think that's why I like working with parents out here. They're so receptive to information. I have just maybe one or two questions left for you. So when you think about what what does continuing to engage in healing and wellness look like for you at this point in your life?
Um, I think for me, I am beginning to enjoy the journey. I think there are parts where I've recognized that are really hard. And I think I want to continue kind of understanding why I do the things I do. Um, because I recognize that there are things that might be holding me back from other blessings to come, and I feel like if I can work on these things, then I'm more open to those, because
Uh,
for example, I have issues with trust and people. So if I can start working on that, maybe I can lower down some of those walls that I have really, really high. And it's a process, and sometimes it's a scary process because honestly, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just going with the flow and trying to research
yeah.
and talking with people, talking with you, just talking with other people who are going through that same journey, what worked for them, what didn't work, and then doing my own exploration as what's working for me, because I don't think I don't think everyone's journey looks the same. So on one hand, it's almost like you have to take that journey, and the walk is yours and yours alone, but there are other people on that path with you.
Yes, it's
So
like Go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you. Sorry.
So
You killing me.
I I guess invested to see where this leads and how I can improve some of the things in my life, or how can I just be open, because I feel like I'm not open to some things yet, and that might be in itself a block. That's, so sometimes we notice that we're missing things in our lives, but we're not there yet. So even if those things come in, am I in the headspace to accept or to make those things work?
Exactly. I'm glad you recognize that. Like, we come to certain understandings, and when people talk about like video games, you unlock a new level, right? We unlock a new level when we're ready, right? There has to be, in most
Yeah.
cases, a mastery or an acceptance of something in order for that new door to open. And it's going to bring about a new challenge,
Yeah.
new opportunity, but new growth. So I think that what you're sharing is you're recognizing, if I can reflect, you want to get out of your own way, right? That you want to continue
Yeah.
to explore with compassion, for sure. And in the safety of like a professional relationship and a community of supportive people, like they go hand in hand. We talk about protective factors all the time, that some of the most important protective factors are supportive family, be that born or chosen, and just a healthy community of support. And that doesn't mean a lot of people, because like you said, there might be so many people with you on the journey, but it is your journey to tread. Um, but I appreciate that reflection. It makes me want to ask you this, last question. When you think about that preferred future, right? If we're thinking solution focused, this is a question I have to ask myself weekly, especially at the workplace. When you think about that preferred future, what do you notice? What comes up for you? What shows up? What do you want to be there? Like, think abundance. Think, what do you want to be present?
For me, I think my end goal is family. What am I doing this for? Like,
Uh,
what am I doing this for if not for family? So, but I also recognize that I don't want that future family to look like my current family and the issues that we face to go through. Like, we always say, like, I know for my mom's generation, she didn't want us, she wanted us to be better. So when I do finally have that family, I want things for them to be better. And I think me on this journey and me looking at some of the issues that I've recognized and I'm now able to put a name to, or um, recognize that it's not just me alone that have some of these issues. I want to be able to work through these things so that when that family, or when it's time to have that family, I can spare them some of that generational pain that we've passed on, even inadvertently. Like, I know there are things that my mom didn't want to pass on, but it was passed on.
yeah, yeah, I
So
hear you.
that's what I'm looking at.
I hear you, and I am grateful for you, trusting me to share that and trusting us to have that information, because it's like, I think as Black people, we talk about, as a diaspora, we talk about generational curses a lot, right? But I also want us to recognize that there's generational healing, right? It
Yeah.
is two sides of a coin. It's never just all this and never just all that. Again, we have a lot culturally that we can engage in that helps us to heal from things that have happened to us, either that we brought on ourselves or that we didn't. So I encourage you on this journey that you're on. You know that I'm always here to listen if you need to talk and help direct you to some culturally responsive support that's going to help you unpack the things that you want to unpack from this leg of the journey, and share with us how we can follow your journey social media. If people have questions, listen, if anybody is into science and you want to come internationally, this is the person. Like, she can sit and talk science all day. I love it.
All day long.
Listen,
All
y'all,
day long.
listen.
Yes, science teachers definitely get paid a lot more internationally. So let me know, hook me up. I'll
Okay, as you should. So yes, tell
I
us.
want more people to come out. I want more people of color. Like, listen, we need to show the world that we are here. We are beautiful, we are
Yes,
strong, and we are here to stay. We need to get rid of that narrative when we raise our voice, we angry. No, when I raise my voice, I know what I'm talking about.
I
Okay.
am
You
knowledgeable.
know,
Listen,
I know what I'm talking about,
yes,
right? And me raising and that passion is not anger.
thank
We need
you.
so coming out, and it's important to get more people on that journey, because we need to get out of our, like, that little box that people try to box us in. We need to get out. We need to exploring and understanding and seeing different perspective helps us grow. And it's important that more people have that opportunity to come out and see what's there. You don't have to stay for 8 years. I'm out here because I have a goal, and then there are things that I want to accomplish.
Right.
But it's just coming out and meeting the people that you meet is a blessing.
Yes. I mean, it's kind of like once you're out and you're thriving, or better yet, you've adjusted, you're working through the things that come up for you in your isolation period while you're surviving, and then you start to thrive. It's kind of like a level of freedom that nothing else can give you, especially if you're
Yeah,
working at a good place and you have the finances to be able to travel and connect with people all over the world, go to conferences. It's just like, okay, I can go home to visit. Like, I
yeah,
consider myself a person of the world now. I don't even think that I could live in the United States like permanently ever again. It just doesn't feel
yeah.
right.
I know
Um,
that feeling. I am going to Ghana for Christmas. I'm
I'm so
excited.
excited for you. Oh my God, you gotta tell me about it.
I like, I would have never thought that I would be going to Ghana. Like, it wasn't
Right.
like, like, that's what I'm telling my aunt. She needs to organize, come travel. My goddaughter's like, she just finished high school this year. I'm so proud of her. She
Amazing.
needs to get her passport so that I can bring her. So, because I want the world for her, so that she can. You
Yeah.
got to see the world.
It's available to us. This is literally why I created this platform. It's for us and other people to know that we thrive abundantly everywhere in the world. We have community everywhere in the world. And so the more that we connect and share, the more of us can reap the benefits of this particular, lifestyle and grow, right? Everything's not always great, but in community, we can make it more exponential for everybody to tap in to like this particular opportunity. So, um, how can we follow you on social? Is that something you want to offer?
Uh,
Because you can't be
I
telling people they can
am
follow you for
really bad
science
at
and don't give
social.
them a way to do it.
No, I have Facebook, so I'll send you my Facebook link, and I'll send you
Okay.
my LinkedIn link. And my Instagram link. So
Okay.
definitely I could send you those things, and I answer, I respond. Um, I respond when people reach out, but I am so poor at social media.
Listen, you better get better because you already know, like, I will help promote any type of initiative that you have when it comes to educating our masses, especially in the gift that you have of science and getting more of us abroad. We could all like link up and connect
I
and just help people.
do I am, like, I had a discussion with my mom, because I was like, I really want to start something to help teachers from my home country
Mm,
to try to move abroad. So I am in the process of thinking on
okay.
how I can affect, or how, like, what role can I play to do that a little bit more. So I am, and so I'll let you know how that works
Yeah.
out, and where that consultation uh thing starts up. So that's where my thought pattern is right now, for now.
Fabulous. Well, Jody, thank you so much for everything that you shared with us. I'm so grateful for you spending time with us today. Um, and so everyone
Thank you
that is,
for having me.
you are so welcome. So everyone for that's watching, again, I want to say I told you it'd be a good episode. And I want to say thank you for joining us today on the Black Expat Experience. I encourage you to keep taking risks, impacting your communities, and as always, prioritizing your mental health. Go live abundantly in the world. And please, as you do this, share our message in your communities. We're trying to grow and continue to spread this knowledge worldwide. So with that, I'm going to say thank you again, Jody, for joining us, and have a great day, everyone.